not even 24 hours after the Orioles owner sold them, right? The new ownership comes in and shows how serious they are, and they traded for Corbin Burns, a top 10 pitcher in the league right now, a former Cy Young winner. Absolutely, insane scenes over there in Baltimore. The Orioles are looking to be more than competitive. They're going to show that it wasn't just a one-year fluke, that this year they are meaning business. And last year in the playoffs, one of their biggest reasons for capitulating and not being able to win one game was their lack of experience and lack of an ace. And now they've got that both aspects in Corbin Burns, who has had multiple starts in the playoffs, has won the Cy Young. He is definitely an ace for a playoff caliber team and potentially a World Series team. And he's gone to the Orioles, where he's got guys like Bradish and Rodriguez, who are young arms that could really develop with his guidance as well. Not only that, he will be starting game one if they do make the playoffs this year. Now, who do they get him for? Joey Ortiz and DL Hall. Now, people are saying that they absolutely got fleeced, but when you look at these guys' minor league stats, let's check out AAA for Joey Ortiz. He has a batting average of 327, and he's got 13 home runs, and he's done this in 504 games now. It seems like he doesn't have much power, but he has good average in the AAA. That's pretty good. He is around 25 years old. Obviously, he has had a couple games in the majors, but his average is 212. Hasn't hit a home run. He's got a double. It seems like he could develop into a nice little 7th hole type of guy, 8th hole. He could be a nice little hitter towards the end of the order. Nothing too special. You also got DL Hall, a pitcher here, who looks pretty good. I'm not going to lie. They could develop him. You've got in the majors, he's got a 382. He's played some games as well, 29 games. He's only started maybe like 5 or 6 of them. AAA, he has a 2.47 ERA. So these are decent players. I feel like DL Hall is probably the better of the two. He could potentially be a starting pitcher for the Milwaukee Brewers soon. Obviously, they got a 34 overall pick in the draft. All right, it seems like they switched sports real quick to the NFL. I'm kidding. It's like a technicality on how this happened, but starting rotation looks pretty good for the Orioles here. You've got Corbin Burns, Kyle Bradish, Grayson Rodriguez, John Means. Now Kremer, I don't believe he should be the 5th hole here. I think he's not very good. Tyler Wells, in my opinion, is the better pitcher. I think Kremer could come in and eat up innings, start a couple games here and there if there's an injury or whatnot. But I think Tyler Wells should be the 5th guy. But obviously, when it comes to playoffs, Corbin Burns, Kyle Bradish, Grayson Rodriguez, and then John Means maybe, depending on what kind of year could fit into this starting rotation battle. But Kremer and should not be in the top 5. It should be Wells instead. Wells just had a bit of injuries, but he's a bit underrated in my opinion. He shouldn't be in the bullpen. I think he should be a part of the starters, and Kremer should possibly be seeing time in the pen. Because if you check here, Tyler Wells, obviously his first year, he had a 5 ERA. But then he gets it together with a 271 and then a 344 last year. So I genuinely believe Tyler Wells can be a good pitcher. Could be a 5th guy for sure. So we should really take in consideration Kremer isn't as good. So putting him there, I don't believe that's the correct thing. But this is fantastic for the Orioles. I think this solidifies themselves to make the playoffs. I think it's going to be a battle between the Yankees and the Orioles, and obviously the Rays could come into play. I feel like they always end up competitive no matter what happens, even though they traded a guy like Glass now. I feel like they could still develop even Ryan Pepiot, who was a very key piece of that trade. But I think the Orioles and Yankees will be the top 2. But this is terrible news, though, for the New York Yankees now. You might be saying, whoa, how is this terrible news for the New York Yankees? Well, the Orioles have the number 1 farm system still after this trade. Not only that, their former number 1 overall pick shortstop, Jackson Holliday, is coming out. He could potentially be a factor. Now you're going to move to the rotation here. You've got Corbin Burns against Garrett Cole. Obviously, Garrett Cole had a better year last year, but Corbin Burns isn't too far off. And now the Yankees, in my opinion, should have made an offer that could have made an offer better than what the Orioles did for Corbin Burns. Now, considering that, Corbin Burns could have gone to any other team and he has 1 year left on his contract before he hits free agency next year, well, now you have to consider The Orioles have new ownership, and this ownership, not even 24 hours after acquiring the Orioles, end up trading for Corbin Burns, a former Cy Young winner, 29 years old, in his prime, right? So sometimes you have to take in consideration, well, you have a division rival, right, in the Orioles, who you're gonna play tons of times this year. Corbin Burns has one start against the Yankees, and it was eight no scoreless innings, right? So that just shows he has, potentially he could have your number in the when he plays against the Yankees. And then Garrett Cole's coming off a Cy Young winning year, so I'm gonna say Garrett Cole's here is better than Corbin Burns. But as I was saying, sometimes you want to acquire someone so someone else doesn't get it, if that makes any sense. Like, I'm gonna switch sports for a little bit. The Raiders, right, with Harbaugh. Oh yeah, you like Antonio Pierce or whatnot, but the Chargers, if they get Harbaugh, could possibly be a top team in the AFC and make the playoffs next year. So maybe pick up Harbaugh, because Antonio Pierce will be as good as Harbaugh, and you don't want to be facing Harbaugh 2 times a year. So instead of just letting him go to the Chargers, you overpay so you get him, and the other team doesn't get him. And now instead you're gonna be facing Corbin Burns because you didn't want to give up a prospect or two that potentially might not even ever play in the major leagues, right? In my opinion, I would have gave up a guy like Peraza or a guy like Pereira, or one of those two guys, and I feel like that would have got the job done for Corbin Burns, and then you can extend him after, and then you have a rotation instead of Clark Schmidt, who's Mr. I'm gonna let up 5 runs every time I start. You have a rotation of Cole, Burns, Rodon, Nestor, and Stroman, and that would have been the better lineup. That would have been elite. That would have been the best lineup. That would have been amazing to compete with everyone else. And then the Orioles are stuck without an ace, and they have to go check out Dylan Cease, who seems to be a very expensive option. Check out Blake Snell, who's also looking to be an expensive option. And imagine the Orioles go out and get Blake Snell as well. That would be just I would finish the New York Yankees there. But Garrett Cole, we take the pie there. Bradish versus Rodon. Well, Rodon was very, very off last year with the Yankees. Had terrible starts. Couldn't even get out of innings at times. But Kyle Bradish had around 3.03 ERA last year. Was like in the top 5 for ERA in the AL. So I'm going to have to go Kyle Bradish here. Rodriguez had a better second half of the season than Nestor Cortez. Nestor Cortez was basically hurt almost the whole year, so I'm gonna go Rodriguez here as well, considering last season. So far, the Orioles have a better 2 and 3 than the Yankees. I think Rodon will bounce back, and so will Nestor, but you don't know how good the development will be for Kyle Bradish and Rodriguez, who are still young guns that are going to be developing and getting better than they were last year. John Means versus Stroman. Stroman also had a lot of injuries, but Means was out for basically the whole year. But Stroman was at one point in the conversation for Cy Young. So we're going to have to give Stroman there the benefit of the doubt. Kremer versus Schmidt. You are basically deciding between Dumb and Dumber, but I'll go with Schmidt. I'm very against Clark Schmidt being a starting pitcher for the New York Yankees. I believe this guy gives up home runs for a living. This guy seems to have an addiction to letting up runs for the relievers to come in to try to keep low. It seems like every time the Yankees play with Clark Schmidt, they have 5 runs against them. That's basically every time I've seen them play with Clark Schmidt. But anyways, Kremer's pretty bad. But if you put Tyler Wells, Schmidt, and Kremer, I would take Tyler Wells. I do think Schmidt could potentially develop. He is still kind of a young pitcher, so I think the ceiling for Schmidt is the highest, but at the moment he's the second to lowest. Kremer's just the bottom for everything. Tyler Wells is the best at the moment. Schmidt could be better, if that makes any sense. But I do believe it does, because Schmidt has, he's very inconsistent. Sometimes he pitches really good, and then sometimes he's one of the worst pitchers, and he should be on the Double-A team at times. But he's a very frustrating guy, and if I were the New York Yankees, I would have put him in the trade instead of Michael King. But that's just me. But anyways, this is very scary for the Yankees, because the Orioles have been bad for a very long time, and now they have one of the brightest futures. Owners that are showing that they want to spend and be, competitive for the next 10 years. A very promising young core in the majors already, and you have the #1 farm system. and you just cemented a deal where you're going to be in Baltimore for the next 30 years, and it's just pure positives for the Baltimore Orioles. And right now for the Yankees, there's nothing but trouble with Steinbrenner and Cashman. It seems like it's a recurring thing every year, so the Yankees really need to get it together and go out and revisit a guy like Blake Snell, maybe even Dylan Cease, who you're gonna have to pay a little bit more. Even though I rather have Blake Snell on a 2-year deal where you're paying a little bit more than you would have on a 6-year deal, so you could prove it. Because I know there's a low market for him at the moment. The Yankees were reportedly the only team to offer him a contract with the 6 years, 150. I think I'd offer him a 2-year or a 1-year deal, something where he could prove himself again, which is kind of unfair because he just came out of a Cy Young winning season. But I feel like the age is the thing that's stopping a lot of teams from offering him more money. But I believe it's going to be very key for the Yankees to get another guy in here and get Clark Schmidt out of the top 5 rotation. I think it's a need, but I don't see the Yankees making any more moves when it comes to starting rotation. I think there are some bullpen arms that they're going to be adding, but that's about it. For the Orioles, though, I do believe there's going to be more coming soon. I feel like they're going to go for one more starter. I have that feeling. They did get a closer as well with Craig Kimbrell, who's a bit, at his peak, he was one of the best closers. And lately, he has, made the All-Star game or whatnot, but he's a bit fluky these days. But anyways, make sure to like and subscribe for more videos, and let me know what you think about the Corbin Burnes trade. Where does this put the Orioles for you in the division, and how does this affect the team like the New York Yankees?